Good afternoon, Commissioner. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Representative Lawler and Senator Kissel, members of the committee. I am here today to lend my support to raise Bill 6708, which is an act concerning criminal cases of persons who have returned from service with the armed forces, and authorizes the Chief Court Administrator to establish a court location, a docket at any court location, a docket separate from other criminal matters, especially for those who have served in the armed forces. My support of this bill is contingent on its design to utilize existing, already funded alternatives to incarceration and veterans treatment programs that are available both through the state and the federal agencies. I would just like to say that we have had at Rocky Hill for some time, courts have used us as an alternative to incarceration because we are the only state in the union that has a substance abuse recovery program with our home. And this has worked out very well because we have made an attempt and have been very successful to carrying out whatever the courts have decided as to classes or certain community services that veterans have to have. I would just like to say that we first became aware of this problem. Just so you know, there's been over 16,500 Connecticut residents have been deployed since 9/11, and we began to hear in November of '07 that there were some of them were having problems with the law. And not all of these things were post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury. A lot of it was some of the thrill-seeking behaviors, domestic violence, and aggressive confrontations, which often included weapons. And because of the heavy reliance on the Guard and Reserve, this is not happening on remote bases. It's happening in our own communities, and that's why whatever we do now, we are forging a future foundation for the way in which the United States relies on citizen soldiers. So making an investment now in developing this with the court. I particularly like this form of the bill. I know there's another form that has been circulated in the House, but one of the things that I like is that it's broad in its context. It's not limited to traumatic brain injury or post-traumatic stress disorder. Sometimes those things are not formally diagnosed. It also, I would like to say that we had tried to begin this work, and the fact that the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services received a very good grant from SAMHSA to carry this out. It's actually being piloted, I think, in New London right now. But in my travels to find some justice on this, I have had the opportunity to speak with the public defender and many of the people that are here today, including the Chief Court Administrator, Barbara Quinn. So I think that they understand the nature of this issue. And one of the things is that we know, definitely know, because at Rocky Hill today, I have veterans of the Vietnam War who are not accorded this honor of this privilege. And they have had a lifetime of struggles with substance abuse and with aggressive behavior. We have a chance to we know now that early interventions and support rather than incarceration is the answer for these fine men and women who have given so much to the United States. It's really hard, too, if you consider that in one day you could be in Baghdad or Afghanistan and the next day you're in Brantford. So this decompression time is not there, and the skills that kept them alive in the war zone are some of the skills that's just hard to get a handle on here in the civilian community. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, thanks, Commissioner. And you know, I forget his name. There's a member of your staff that is very active in this, working in the mental health community, and
is it my staff, or there are a lot of people? The state.
There was a guy. I think I apologize, drawing a blank, but I did go to a meeting with a bunch of some of the community mental health providers and some of the criminal justice.
It might be Jim Tackett. It might be General McHale.
I think it was Jim
all
Tackett,
of them.
Yeah.
I think
they were great.
I think that's the most important thing, to reassure this committee that this state does have the resources to make this work. Most people, including many members of the legislature, are supportive of this concept. We have the resources. I think breaking down some of the traditional barriers between agencies and lines of communications would be helpful in this particular this particular effort. But let me say that the Department of Veterans Affairs really would be happy to assist in the development of the finer details of this project.
And I think you're quite right. Sometimes the biggest problem is the barriers between agencies, whether it's mental health or criminal justice or your agency, for example, and not to mention dealing with the federal agencies, especially the Veterans Administration. They're kind of, I mean, you don't have to say this, but this has been my experience that at the VA hospitals, they seem extremely hostile to state involvement or criticism or perceived criticism, and it really seems to be creating a big obstacle for people on the front lines to do what they need to do. And
well, I think that we're all looking forward to the administration of General Shinseki, but I would just like to reassure you that I am the chief advocate for veterans in this state, and I will be glad to go to the VA for anyone with a good case.
And you made a point earlier, and I agree with this actually, and that is that it may not necessarily need to be a special dedicated docket just for these cases, but it might be just more of a training and awareness and a coordination of services so that when these offenders present themselves, assuming it's not a major serious case, because oftentimes it's a relatively minor case where, and I've seen this, and I've talked to a lot of corrections officers who have told me this, that they see these veterans, whether it's the Vietnam era veterans or the more recent era veterans, they're coming back with all kinds of mental health issues, which are very understandable, and it's really tragic to see that one thing leads to another, and now they're sitting in a prison cell when they should have gotten more appropriate help earlier on. And that's, I think, I view, and I think you kind of agree, it's kind of our fault for not making this available in a timely fashion so that they can get the help they need and not end up getting it in a prison context.
Well, I think we know there are approximately 700 veterans in prison in Connecticut. Many of them are not have access to the specialized care that would be available through the Veterans Administration, and we try to assist them as they transition into the community. I think one thing we have certainly learned that early interventions with both traumatic brain injuries and post-traumatic stress really do work well, and actually with the jail diversion project that DEMAS already has in the court system for special cases, I think that we have a wonderful foundation to build on in the state. So I want to thank Senator Looney for introducing this bill.
Further questions? Senator Kissel?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner, for coming this afternoon to testify. I reviewed the bill as you were in your colloquy with Chairman Lawler, and so right now we have a drug court docket, and what this bill proposal would do is establish a veterans docket. But I'm a little confused. I'm not as up to speed on this as obviously you are. Are we already doing this informally?
Yes.
And was that with the tacit blessing of the judicial branch, or is there an ongoing relationship?
I think it's an individual situation. When I first became the commissioner, one of the first individuals was someone who was a reservist home on, not on active duty. It means he was not on orders, and he got himself into some trouble and the court gave him the option to coming to our treatment program or to going to jail. I have to say that it's somewhat comforting to know that he chose Rocky Hill over going to jail. But it worked out well because we really do assist veterans. We make sure that they have the transportation to make the classes, to make the treatments, that they are required to be in compliance with the court. And so, yes, informally we have been doing this. I think one of the things that we found in our scouting efforts was that many of the members of the court are not aware of the veteran status. Sometimes veterans are reluctant to actually admit that they are veterans. And another thing, too, I think there's a part of this that's actually semantics in many respects. If you say to someone, are you a veteran? They may not say yes, even though they served in the military. So the question is, have you ever served in the military? And then we go from there, because people think veterans have to have served 20 years or something like that. And I am confident that this current generation of men and women who are serving have a better concept of what the veteran is. But at the same time, I am impressed by today's military members who really have a lot of drive and might not want to stay in the military, and so being in court and having a record may disqualify them from serving further when it was something that was linked to their service. And I just give you an example that you probably, when someone is coming from Bradley Airport to Hartford and they've just been in Baghdad, they have a terrible time when they come to the overpasses because they're looking for someone who might be shooting at them.
Good afternoon.
And it takes a time to decompress. We don't have the military environment we've had in the past. They're going from Baghdad to Brantford.
You are such a good advocate, Commissioner, for the veterans. Your belief in their service and your complete commitment to them is palpable. So we're not looking to expand any of the drug treatment programs we already have on the books or anything like that.
No, I think with the grant that the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services has available, with our own infrastructure that we have available, I am proud to say that Connecticut is the only state in the union that actually has a substance abuse recovery program associated with its veterans home. And it is a state facility that has been in existence since 1992. So we have some experience with working with VA. And in my scouting mission with General McHale, I'll use his name because we went together, I want you to know that we talked to the chiefs of police because when we talked to the Chief State's Attorney Kane, he said we have to get it at the grassroots level, and so that's where we went. We went to all the police chiefs. We gave them information, cards on calling the military support program. So we did distribute this to every police department in the state of Connecticut. So people are aware of it, and the time is right to really put this bill into effect.
I just can't thank you enough. I completely support the initiative. I also would take this opportunity to commend Senator Looney for bringing this bill forward. The good senator, I don't always agree on legislative initiatives, but this one we clearly do. And you're exactly correct. We have the resources. The time is absolutely right. You know, people are very supportive of our troops when they go off to fight in these wars. And boy, but you know, the measure of a society and our nation is really how do we treat the troops when they come back home. And anything and everything that we can do to be supportive is absolutely legislation that I think all of us can support. So thank you, Commissioner.
Well, thank you.
Representative Holder Winfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Having served in the military for 8 years, these bills are always of interest to me. I just have a question, just so that I understand better the bill. In your testimony, you talk a lot about people coming back in a transitioning time. Is this bill applicable to people up until a certain point, or just because they are veterans?
I think this is my own interpretation of it, and I would leave the final interpretation to Senator Looney, but I believe the wording of the bill refers to the definition of veteran and armed forces as in 27-103, which is if they have served in the military.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything further? Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.